not a few, not just 100, hundreds of firearms. In an interview with ABC News, Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney said the weapons were the deciding factor in law enforcement's decision to arrest him elsewhere. So they didn't arrest him in the home. They arrested him, it says, outside of the home. And of course, that makes sense. They would not want to arrest him there because he had a stash of firearms that was ridiculous. They didn't want him to have access to those. So that was a strategy, of course. And then they're saying that, court documents that have been filed suggest that his wife had no idea about what was going on. It suggests that Heuermann likely kept his actions from his family. Analysis of phone records shows that Heuermann's wife, Asa Ellerup, was out of town during the periods in 2009 and 2010 when Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello went missing. Though Heuermann is a suspect in the 2007 death of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, phone records from that era are no longer accessible. I didn't realize that. That's something new. We don't have records, phone records, prior to 2007. That's interesting. Maybe not in that area. Maybe it is somewhere. I don't know. I don't know how long they have to keep those. But now, I would think now in the age of cell phones that data would need to be kept forever. I mean, look at how many years it takes in many cases to get to these, to connect all the dots and get to these criminals. So if we start throwing away potential evidence that can help link people to crimes, that's horrific. We don't need to be doing that. In an interview with CNN, Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison said the Heuermann's family was stunned when they were told of his alleged crimes. They were disgusted. They were embarrassed. He said, "So if you ask me, I don't believe they knew about this double life that Heuermann was living." BTK, I've talked about him for the last 2 days. He did that. He lived a normal life, productive, normal life, was a good father from the children's accounts, was a good provider, evidently had a happy marriage, because they were married for 30 odd years. So that double life, I've heard people say many times, oh, there's no way his wife did not know that. There is no way. Yeah, there is. There is a way. And BTK, his wife, the day he was arrested, was granted an emergency divorce. And those are incredibly rare. I mean, that was really the first time I'd ever heard that, an emergency divorce. The judge granted her a divorce after he was arraigned because she had no idea. And see, he confessed. So it wasn't like, oh, maybe he did it, maybe he didn't do it. No, he confessed. Therefore, and they caught him, in the sneaky way that the police did. It was fantastic. But she didn't know. And the children didn't know. I mean, to all accounts from the children, he was a great father. They have loads of pictures you can see online where he was with them, especially like the wedding pictures with his daughter. He just looks like a normal family man who's enjoying normal life. Of course, I don't see him that way anymore because I know he's a serial killer. So when I see him, I see evil, I see evil. Heuermann's family was reclusive, per neighbors. So his family was not necessarily very social. Residents in Heuermann's neighborhood are starting to paint a picture of the suspect's life in Massapequa Park, where he lived with Ellerup and their 2 children. Heuermann was previously married to another woman in the 90s. The New York Post reports that Heuermann's daughter, Victoria, is an employee at his architecture firm, though a page that included the company's employees has been scrubbed from its website. I can imagine why. Not much is known about Heuermann's other child, a stepson who a neighbor described to CBS News as having special needs. So it's a stepchild. So that's a little bit different than if, actual blood relative. Ellerup shopped at the IGA grocery store with the children every week for decades. Heuermann never joined them. Mary Salmeri, a store manager, told the New York Times that Ellerup looked depressed and noted that the family always paid with food stamps, which was uncommon for that area. The use of food stamps also seems at odds with Heuermann's career as an architect with a Midtown Manhattan office. Okay, so I said early in this podcast that I felt like they had money because of, number one, he has his own firm, his own architectural firm. Doesn't mean it was successful, but if his daughter was working there and they had a host of other people working there, it had to be somewhat successful for those people to get paid. So if they were paying in food stamps, it's possible that the mother might have gotten food stamps for the special needs child, but you still have to have that income. Now, they're not saying that his wife took his last name. I mean, Ellerup, maybe she didn't take his name. Maybe they had separate income. He had to have some wealth at some point to have hundreds of guns. Y'all know how expensive guns are. Even the cheapest gun's $175, and that's on a sale week at Rural King. Most of your guns are going to be $600 to $1,000, and then, even if he goes to a pawn shop and buys them, they're expensive. So to have hundreds of guns, you got to have wealth somewhere. Maybe that's what he was spending all his money on. We don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see what comes about as we learn more about Heuermann. The family's neighbors describe the family as being solitary, rarely interacting with anyone on their block, or having visitors to their home. That's not unusual. Maybe for the rest of the family, but the serial killer is typically not a very social person. Though they may have a normal job, they may function outside of their criminal activity as a normal person that has friends and maybe goes out and eats with maybe a couple on the weekends or something. But they're not incredibly social. The house they lived in was not well maintained, and one neighbor said Ellerup often looked like she just rolled out of bed. Well, the lady at the grocery store said she looked depressed all the time, so maybe she was. Right now, we have a flood of information and a flood of evidence coming in, and it's going to take us a while to sort of go through all of that, the district attorney, Ray Tierney, said. On Sunday and Monday, police searched and removed items from storage units, which Rex Heuermann apparently rented at 2 self-storage facilities in Amityville. They also removed evidence from the office of Heuermann's architecture firm in Midtown Manhattan over the weekend and have continued to confiscate items from his Long Island home as well. CNN reports that according to a source, the search of his house in Massapequa Park has largely been focused on forensics, but authorities are also looking for items that could be souvenirs from the killings, things that appear to be hidden or kept in such a way other family members would not have come across them. We see that very often, like with Dahmer. He kept their entire bodies or body parts. He also kept jewelry, clothing items, whatever would bring him back to that memory. He also, BTK, he kept a cache of all kinds of souvenirs from the killings, and they were hidden in hollow wall, like your wall has 2x4s ever so many inches or feet, maybe. Obviously, I'm not a builder or in construction, but anyway, he had sections. Of course, it was paneling, wooden paneling, not like sheetrock. So the things that I've seen from BTK, he had pieces of this paneling that were cut out that he could remove, and in between the studs was a box of material, and all that stuff that was in there, it was, souvenirs from the people that he killed, which of course helped link the victims to him in a very specific way. And I saw two things. He had two places like that, and when he put that piece of wood back, that piece of paneling back, you couldn't even see it. So it's so absolute. There's an absolute possibility that these family members had absolutely no idea. Zero idea. So that doesn't surprise me at all. Among the items recovered from Heuermann's residence, which Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison described as a very cluttered house, there were between 200 and 300 firearms, including pistols, revolvers, and semi-automatic rifles that Heuermann kept in a vault in his basement. All right, if you've got 200 or 300 firearms, even your largest standard safe that you can buy is not going to hold all those. So if he has a vault in the basement, he's got, oh my gosh, it takes money to do that. It takes money to have a vault. I mean, if he was storing them correctly, it has to have an air ventilation system. It has to keep the humidity out. I mean, our safe has all of that, but it's, we don't have 300 firearms. I know people back home in Tennessee who have 4, 5, 6 different safes, and they're very organized about it. Like, one has the pistols, one has revolvers, one has semi-automatic rifles, blah blah blah, and that's fine. But it takes money to do all that. So I'm really stumped as to how they can be on food stamps, but he can have an architectural firm in Manhattan that had staff, including his daughter, and he owned all of these firearms. But I mean, he only had legal permits for 92 of them. I mean, that's still 92 of them. So you could have a legal permit for those. He's bought those. That means he's purchased those from a gun store, or like Rural King, or I don't know, any of those stores we go to quite often that have all the guns. Because you have to, when you're buying them legitimately, you have to have a legal permit. It's concerning regarding the guns being registered or legal or not. I mean, if you have a legal permit, it should be registered. That's the bottom line there. But I mean, if only 92 he had legal permits for them, the others probably were not registered. He probably did buy those at a pawn shop or bought them off individuals. That's the thing. We don't really have any laws that control, or if we do, people don't pay attention to them. Where you sell a gun to someone, you don't have to report that to the government. The bad part about doing that is if I sell my gun to my neighbor down the street, and then that neighbor goes out and commits a crime, and they get that gun, that serial number is going to come back to me because I didn't have it officially changed to him as being the new owner. So, obviously we should follow rules, but we also know that if you want a gun, you can get a gun. If you want one legally, you can get it legally. If you want one illegally, you can do that too. So you can have all the rules and regs you want. Doesn't mean people are going to follow. All right, so that's something we're still taking a look at. He says, anytime somebody has that type of arsenal, we have concerns. Well, no joke. Police have also been seen removing what the New York Post describes as dozens of bizarre items, including a child-sized, fair-haired doll kept in a large wooden and glass case, and it was not found in Heuermann's children's rooms. That is weird. After his arrest, he Heuermann reportedly asked, "Is it in